All right. Well, thank you very much. First, I want to thank Stu Kent for having me as a speaker. This is my first time at a ProfCon in person, and so I'm really excited to be here and to have the opportunity to speak. And I just love the excursion yesterday. How many of you guys went to Yellowstone? Yeah, a lot of people. And this is a tough act to follow. I don't know how many were in Tara's presentation. So I've been practicing that box breathing thing that she was talking about ever since she displayed it, for the last, half hour or so. So I hope I live up to it's big footsteps to follow. A little bit about me, just really quick in a nutshell. So I'm going into my 14th year of teaching. I can't believe I'm saying that. I've taught all sorts of things from advertising to principles, and at Texas State, as was said, I'm teaching research, I'm teaching digital, social media, and I teach IMC. So what I'm going to talk to you guys about today is an assignment that I developed a couple years back that I really think has application for lots of different courses. And it's kind of low tech. So, I hope that the name of my presentation isn't too misleading. I'm a big believer in the expectation disconfirmation theory. I don't know how many of you guys are into services marketing, but I'm kind of like setting the bar low here, So hopefully you will find that this is valuable. So let's just jump right in. So first of all, social media engagement. So let's talk about that for a minute, because this exercise is developed to basically try to tease out what are some of the drivers of social media engagement. So in the broad sense, social media or engagement in the broad sense, some people argue that there's a psychological component to it, that it is psychological. It's really like about involvement. And then other people argue, no, it's behavioral. So I'm one of the people that thinks that it exists in both forms, and I've got some research on psychological engagement, but I'm not going to talk about that form today. Today I'm going to talk about the form that we all have come to know, which is the behavioral. In terms of social media engagement, that's likes and reactions on posts on different platforms, comments, shares, all that adds up to social media engagement. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We know that social media engagement is a huge KPI for marketers. This is something that they really care about. And there's two primary reasons that they care about social media engagement so much. The number one reason is because it's an indicator of how well the content that they develop and post, how well is it resonating with the target audience. So that's one important reason. The second one is reach. Its algorithms love engagement. When the algorithms, they value that engagement and they prioritize posts that generate a lot of engagement, and then they push it into more news feeds. So in order to achieve a lot of reach, you've got to get that engagement, especially when we're talking about organic reach, which is hard to generate now. So how do we get the engagement from a marketing standpoint? How do we generate that engagement? So experts, industry experts like Hootsuite, they give us lots of tips and tricks. This is a recent post for 2023. This one talks about using hashtags and how you can use hashtags to try to spark engagement. And they say if you're using social media to market your brand, then you should use hashtags. They help boost your brand's social media reach and engagement. Social media platforms themselves also offer best practices and tips and tricks for spurring engagement. So this is coming from Twitter. They say, here's some things, here's a list. Top one up there is limit, they say use hashtags, but limit to 1 to 2 per tweet. And then there's some other things you can do, keeping your copy short and sweet and what have you. Of course, using images and visuals whenever possible. This screenshot is from a company called Syrdal. Syrdal is a company that helps marketing agencies or helps ad agencies with their social media efforts on behalf of their clients. So this post is all about whether or not you should use hashtags on Facebook. And I blew this up because I know it's kind of hard to read. So they say, whether you're using them could be the solution to your organic reach problem. I beg to differ on that. But and if they've got the power to trigger an improvement in your content's engagement rate, and spoiler alert, they do. So they're saying, hey, use hashtags even on Facebook. So that's just a little sampling of some of the tips and tricks and best practices that come from industry experts. But we can also look at academic research to see what what insights may come from academic research. A little bit of a problem with some of the academic research. A lot of it is based on experimental design and surveys and things like that. And what's the big problem with experimental design and surveys? Trying to glean insights. We have some problems with external validity a lot of times. So some of the things that we might find from experiments and from survey-based research may not be directly applicable, may not have as much generalizability. And so what recently academic research has turned to is observable data. So we have access now to be able to scrape data and to be able to access real world numbers and metrics. So there's some research that is looking at observable data, but it's a mixed bag of results. So as far as using things like, let's just say hashtags, is that going to help posts to garner more engagement or not? And so depending on the publication you're looking at, you might see, like this one, for example, says that post text that contains many hashtags achieves higher engagement. And that's recent, that's 2022. But then there's a conflicting article that says, hey, hashtags correlate to lower levels of engagement. And that's just in 2019. So if you're a marketer, what do you rely on? Do you rely on industry experts and advice from industry experts that may or may not have been thoroughly vetted and tested? Or do you rely on academic research, some of which is experimental design, survey-based, and these types of things? And it's also a mixed bag of results. So I would argue neither. I believe firmly that companies need to, and brands and organizations, they need to be doing their own custom analyses. They need to analyze their own data to see what story that data tells and what is working for them, what's working for them. So we have some, of course, analytics provided by platforms, just a couple quick screenshots here of analytics that are provided by Facebook. You have metrics that pertain to the page overall. You also have metrics that pertain to the content. So we can clearly see quickly that the amount of reach and the amount of engagement that each post garners. LinkedIn, I'm not going to go through all the platforms, but you guys get the idea. We have that sort of thing available right within the platform. So anybody that has a business page is going to have access to these types of analytics. But what I would suggest is that we need to take it a step further because this doesn't tell the entire story. So there is a solution. You can do a custom analysis, and it's very easy to do. And anybody can do it. And we can teach our students to do it very quickly and easily. And you don't need any sophisticated tools, and you don't have to pay any money in order to be able to do this. So we can analyze the brand or organization's their own data. And we can do that by exporting the engagement data that pertains to the post. And we can teach students to do a customized analysis so that they can determine what's working for a given brand or organization. So I've developed this assignment. It's got some objectives. And the very first one is to be able to analyze the data so that they can identify effective social media tactics. This is going to make them use their critical thinking skills. And it's also going to help them to be able to develop a customized strategy for any brand or organization that they are working for, or maybe even their own pages, if they want to do that. Very simple assignment. There's only 3 really necessary materials that they need. The very first thing is the data. And I'll talk about where you can get the data easily in just a second. The second thing is you can use something as low-tech as Excel. I'm going to show you how to do this in Excel, but you could, if you wanted to make a more sophisticated assignment, you can easily bring this. You could bring in SPSS. You could have them run some statistical analyses in R. There's a lot of ways to build on top of this basic assignment. And then a worksheet with instructions, which I will provide for you so that you can mimic it or you could change it up. But I've got that on my website, and I'll give you the link to the website at the end. So the big question is, everybody's got Excel. I'm going to give you the worksheet. So where do you get the data from, though? So lots of different places. I have gotten the data I've had good luck in getting the data from our college accounts. So I went to our Marcom person in the College of Business, and I said, hey, would you be willing to export some data for me and download it, and in exchange for your help, I'll give you a custom report on an engagement analysis. And our Marcom person was super charged up about that, excited for the free analysis and to understand, have a little bit more insight into what's working well for them. We've had lots of conversations about different types of post elements that might work well, like hashtags or mentions and things like these, whether to include links and all this kind of thing. So he was very excited about that. I've had good experience with getting data from the Marcom person at a previous university as well. So that's one source that's easy to do. Like you can go to your person in your college, whoever handles the social media accounts. If you happen to run any social media accounts, you can easily get the data yourself. You can just export it, and I'll show you a quick little way to do that in a second. Another good source of data comes from client-based projects. How many of you guys might do client-based projects or service learning projects where you have a community partner that you work with? So typically clients, community partners, they're very willing to give you their data if they're going to get a free analysis in exchange for it, especially if you're working with nonprofit organizations. Another place that you can get data from for this assignment is students. Students typically have their own accounts. If you feel comfortable with it, and if they feel comfortable with it, you could have them analyze the data from some of their own accounts. It's not going to work for every platform. Facebook's not going to work, but Twitter, if they're using Twitter, they can download their own data. And then also, lastly, another good source is if you want to embed this as part of a course project. I've done this in a social media class where I've had the students develop their own social media marketing plan, and then they develop the content, then they post the content, so they're actually executing their own plan, and then at the end of the campaign, they download their data and analyze it to see what worked well and maybe what could have worked better, what might need improvement. So lots of sources for getting this data. So just real quick, here's an example of how easy it is to get the data. This is Facebook, but every platform's got a similar process. So on Facebook, if you go into the Meta Business Suite and you go under Insights and then click Content, it's going to give you the basic metrics for every post. And then up there at the top is the Export Data button. And you can export data for whatever date range you would like, so you can customize the date range. I'm going to show you an example. I took data I managed the social media accounts, which is just Facebook and LinkedIn. Would like to expand to Instagram, but we're not there yet. But it's for my department. So I'm going to show you an example that's based on that. So I exported some data from Facebook for our department's account for, I think it was September through May, so the academic year. Then once you go through that process, it's going to give you this. I just use the defaults. The main thing is you want post data. So you can also download data that pertains to your page, but for this exercise or for this assignment, you want to have the post data. And this is what it looks like. And I know that's not pretty. And I know you can't read what's in each of those columns up at the top. So I put it in some bullet points. So when you download the file, you're going to get a .csv file that you can open in Excel. And this is the information that's contained within. Every row represents a separate post. So that's the unit of analysis is the post. And each row has data that pertains to that post. And so it actually provides the text that is in the post, as well as a number of what I'll call outcome variables. So impressions, the engagement stuff, the number of people reached, the number of total engagements, the number of likes or reactions, the shares, the comments, and so forth. And if you have videos posted, which we don't, but you would have seconds viewed, 60-second video views, and so forth. So it's got lots of nice metrics in this file. So here's the procedure, the basic procedure that you can use to do some quick analysis on that data. So first thing is just to open up the file in Excel. And then the second thing is to filter out the posts that include some certain element that you want to analyze. So I'm going to use the example of hashtags. So if we are interested to understand, hey, industry experts recommend using hashtags in posts in order to garner more engagement. So that's like a industry standard practice. It's supposed to work better on Twitter and Instagram, but even we just saw examples where it's being recommended even for Facebook. So if we want to do that, we can filter out all the posts that have a hashtag embedded in them. And then we can copy and paste all of those posts into a separate worksheet. So what we're essentially doing is just creating two groups of data. If you were going to bring this into SPSS, you could just go through and code 0, 1. If it is 0 if it doesn't have a hashtag, 1 if it does. And so that you can separate it into groups once you get it into SPSS. But if you're just using Excel for a more basic example, all you need to do is filter, and that's super easy. And then you want to filter out the posts that do not include the hashtag, copy and paste, throw that onto a separate worksheet. So essentially what you've done is create two different groups. You've categorized your post into two different groups, one with hashtags, one in another group that does not have hashtags. And then you're going to compute the average engagement metrics for each group. And so then you'll compare the averages to see which group performed better on those certain metrics. So there's some commonalities among the platforms. They're all going to give you some kind of indication of the number of impressions, the reach, engagement, likes, shares, comments. Basically, you're going to get at least this, and then there's going to probably be some other metrics that you may be interested in as well. Sometimes you might be interested in link clicks and things like that. So this is the example with the data from our department's Facebook page. And of course, I'm not showing all the tweets there, or not tweets, but all the posts, but just so you can get an idea. So what I did is I inserted a row up at the top, and let me see if this, there we go, laser pointer. Okay, so I inserted this row up at the top and just computed the average impressions, the average number of people reached, average engagement, and so forth. And I did this is the group of posts that has a hashtag embedded, at least one hashtag. This is the group of posts that had no hashtag, did the same thing, computed the average number of impressions that were garnered by this group of posts, the average number of people reached, engagements, shares, likes, comments, and so on. And this is not a pretty table, but it is what I have my students do as a basic first step is to record the number of the averages for each of the groups in an Excel spreadsheet. So here we've got the impressions, the people reached, engagements, shares, likes, comments, and we can see, take a look at it for a second. Which group worked better? Would you recommend for this page that hashtags be used or no hashtags? A lot of people are shaking their heads. Why? No hashtags. Everybody's saying no hashtags. It's clear, right? Why? All the metrics are lower for the group with hashtags. So for this particular page, for this particular brand or organization, hashtags are not working, at least not on Facebook. It's not helping to spur engagement. Now, is this a statistical test? No. But we could easily bring this idea, this method into SPSS and see if there's a statistically significant difference between these two groups of posts. But the students are typically surprised by this. Now, we don't always, it depends on the data that I have them analyze. We don't always find that hashtags are detrimental to engagement. Sometimes hashtags work well for a given brand or organization, but a lot of times we have found that hashtags in particular don't work well and actually seem to result in a lower engagement. This is just one example. You can apply this method to other elements of post construction. So does mentioning or tagging other accounts work well to spur engagement? Typically that does tend to work well. What about including like a hyperlink? There's lots of different things that you could do. You could also analyze different hashtags to see if including a certain hashtag works better than not. So that's the insight, which you all picked up on in 2 seconds. As far as the assignment prep goes, it's really easy. The first thing you want to do is get the data file. Get your hands on a data file that you can make available to your students if you want to mimic this assignment. And then if you're in a face-to-face setting, you want to make sure to have students bring in laptops or hold a class in maybe a computer lab. Create a worksheet with instructions. And again, I have one for you if you want to sort of mimic that. And make sure you do the assignment yourself before you have the students do it, because you don't want to be surprised by the findings. And you also want to be able to gauge the time that the students will need to complete the assignment. So I have done this assignment in lots of different classes. I've done it in digital marketing. I've incorporated it into a project in a social media class. I've used it in marketing research. I've even used it in an IMC class once. The students really get into it. They like it. It's very hands-on, and they like playing with the data, and they like, I think, having some control, like just messing with the data behind the scenes. It could be used in a marketing strategy class as well. There's lots of extensions and ways that you could build on this assignment. So you could have students visually summarize the results that they get by doing the assignment. So I recently took a little workshop on storytelling with data, and it was a great workshop. I'm planning to basically create an entire lesson plan, if you will, based on that. And so that's an important skill that students really need. And so this could be the basis for an assignment that you could have the students build on and do visuals, basically creating some nice visuals that tell the story. You could also have students work in small teams, and each team analyzes data from a different organization or a different brand, and have them create the visuals, put them into slides, and do mini presentations to the class to have them practice with their presentation skills as well. Another possible use is to incorporate as an element of a larger digital or social media marketing project, like the one that I was talking about. I've incorporated it into a social media marketing project, and it really worked well. I'm intending to do that again in the fall when I teach social media again. All right, so thank you very much for your attention. I really appreciate it. This QR code will take you to a page on my website. Don't judge the website, please. It's under construction. It's not really under construction, but I'm planning to overhaul it over the summer. But this will take you to a page where I have uploaded the sample worksheet that I've used in my classes. And you can customize it, of course, for your own needs. And I have failed to upload my slides, but I will. If anybody would like me to upload my slides to that website, I can do that as well. All right, well, thank you so much for your attention. I appreciate it.